Hi guys! Well, welcome to Chapters Book Club, I guess, and I'm Martha, and today we are going to be talking again about Across the Universe, and I'm going to be doing chapters 9 through 20. It's really chapters 9 through 19, and pages 62 through 126. So if you have not read, at least until page 126, do not continue watching this because you will be completely spoiled. Do not watch this if you have not read to page 126. I'm going to wait. Okay, you should have stopped watching by now if you have not read past page 126. Okay, for those of you who have, let's go ahead and talk about it. I don't know, should I read the inside of the book? I think we're all pretty caught up to date, considering you all have read past to page 126, so I don't think reading the inside is completely necessary. Yeah, and I'm assuming all of you also watched Amanda's video, so you're all caught up to date with where we are now. Where we left off, I don't really know where you left off, actually. Where you left off with Amanda, Amy was still frozen, and basically by the end of the chapter, Elder was just really infatuated with Amy because he saw her for the first time, and it ends by him saying, I follow him obedient as ever. So that's where you left off. And now we were talking about chapter 9, which brings us to Amy. Which brings me really to my favorite part of this whole book. I love reading about Amy in her dream state. I just think it's very, very cool because, I don't know, I don't think she's really conscious. I don't really think she's conscious at all. I think it's just, she's dreaming, kind of, you know how you'll go in and out of dreams when you're sleeping. I just think that's so interesting in so many different ways you can interpret that. But then, I mean, at the same time, when she was woken up, she was able to tell she was being woken up. So it was a little confusing. I guess she could wake up, she just couldn't move, which would be horrible. Like Amanda said, it'd be like being buried alive. It would be absolutely terrible. It's like being buried alive in yourself. That is a scary thought. So I really, really love that. It's just so poetic when she's writing like that. It's almost like it's in verse. It's very, very pretty. I would read it out loud, but I would just completely ruin it, so I'm not going to attempt to do that. No, I'm not. But these chapters are all really short, and I just really love them because she's going in and out of things that happen to her in her real life and just all these kinds of things. It's very cool. I also love how we're introduced to her old boyfriend Jason through the dream state thing. I think it's really cool. And then we go on to chapter 10, which is Elder. And the only thing particularly I found interesting about this chapter, because I don't really care for Elder, and this chapter is not really long. It's only, like, what, 2 pages? The only thing particularly interesting is this is when I picked up on that they use different words, which I think is really a good idea and really, really clever. Like, he'll say frexing, which is, you know, sort of a emphasizing word, I guess. Like here in the U.S., we would say frickin', or freakin', or however you say it. And then, I guess over in England, you say bloody. Yeah, I think so. I think that's how it works. But anyway, and then up in the ship, they say frexing, which I think is really cool. And then there was another one, it was, I can't remember what it was, like chutz or something. CHUTZ. That's on page 66 at the end, if you want to, look at that. And then there's also another one, it's brilly. I think that one's only used once, but it's still really cool. So I love that there was different words in it. I thought that was very interesting, very cool, and smart, really. Because words would not stay the same. I also really like that, I don't think this happened in this chapter. I don't think it happens for a while because Amy's not even woken up yet. But I also really love that there's kind of a language barrier between them. Like, he'll say things differently. I think the example was, he said the hospital, but it came out saying, like, hospital. So I thought that was really cool. You know what I'm talking about. You read it, right? At the end of the chapter, I believe she thinks she's being woken up. I'm not really sure if she was or not, or if she was just kind of freaking out. I think she was, and then we cut to Elder again in chapter 12. These chapters are really short, like these 6 of these chapters. And chapter 12 is Elder, and honestly, I feel no connection with Elder. At this point, he just seems really obsessed with Amy and seeing her again in her glass thing, which, I mean, I suppose is understandable, you know, wanting to go see the people that are frozen in the ship. But he just seems so obsessed with Amy in this book. Am I annoying you guys? I'm looking at this book, by the way. I'm not just looking down at the floor. And then also in this chapter, we see that the alarm goes off for the cryo chamber, or cryo chamber. That someone was being woken up, which is really cool. But now we go to my favorite chapter, which is chapter 13, which is in Amy's perspective, and how it felt waking up. I thought that was so awesome. I love chapter 13. It is so cool. My favorite page in the entire book is page 77. I love how she ends the chapter saying, "Once I was ice, now I am pain." Really creepy. And then chapter 14, we go back to Elder. I always wanted to say in Amy's perspective. I don't know why. I don't really care for the point of view change. I mean, it's completely necessary for when she's being frozen. I just don't really care for Elder's character at all. So it was really annoying to have to go back to him all the time. But that's just me being extremely picky. Can I ask you guys anything? Did any of you laugh when Amy wakes up and says, "Mama, Daddy"? I mean, maybe I'm just a completely horrible person on, like, general principle, but, yeah. I laughed when that happened. I don't know why. I just thought it was really funny. Obviously, it's understandable. I mean, the whole reason she went was to stay with her mom and her dad. I would have stayed back on Earth. Did anybody else laugh? I'm just asking because I don't want to feel like a completely terrible person for laughing at that. So, yeah, let me know. I really like how Amy's so out of it in this chapter as well. You know, when she finally comes to, she's all just completely freaked out, and I mean, who wouldn't be? I mean, you've just been asleep for 200 years. I lost my page. Can we just talk about something really quick, though? I mean, there's this one part in the book that really irritates me, and it's the part where, I'm not going to go into details, but Elder says, well, Doc stares down at the girl. This is a frexing nightmare. And then I want to say, how can this be a nightmare with her here? And, I mean, I don't understand this kid at all. It's like he's never met a girl or something. I don't really know. But, yeah. I don't care for his obsessiveness about Amy. I think it's a wee bit much, a wee bit sickening. I almost wanted to puke a couple times. And now on to chapter 15, because I can't really think of anything else to say about chapter 14. I don't know. This book I find is kind of hard for me to talk about. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem like a lot's going on for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad at it. And Amy's awake in this chapter, and it's just, I mean, it's a very cool chapter, where, of course, Elder is there when she wakes up the creepy stalker kid. And this is also where we learn that Amy's parents will not be woken up for, was it 49 more years? Yeah, 49 more years. And I felt so incredibly bad for Amy at this part, because, I mean, imagine, I mean, in 49 years she'll be older than her parents, and that would be so horrible. I felt so bad for her at that point. I mean, I would not want to be Amy, but she really should have stayed back on Earth. And now into chapter 16. This actually has my favorite quote in the entire book, where Amy starts to cry because she just found out her parents won't be woken up for 50 more years. And so Elder says, well, you know, he thinks, so I do what any reasonable person would do when faced with a crying girl. I get the frecks out of there. And then also in this chapter we see that Eldest is extremely upset to have Amy on the ship because he thinks she'll be a nuisance. A nuisance? He thinks she'll be a nuisance. Elder's getting really upset because he's thinking, you know, how can this girl be a nuisance? I love this girl. She's amazing. She's got red hair. Yeah, so Elder's really irritating, but I personally felt that Eldest's kind of reaction to Amy was sort of understandable. I mean, obviously there was no call for saying that he was going to throw her off the ship. But, I mean, I can understand his perspective. I mean, everyone is mono-ethnic for a reason on the ship. I mean, they're just trying to get people up to the planet. So it makes sense that he's kind of freaking out that for in all of his entire life there's some new girl there with red hair. I mean, I would freak out too. and it would cause some discord. I mean, it would freak some people out. And we end that chapter, I believe, by there being a really loud WeCom, I'm not sure how to say it, but there's a really loud WeCom buzzing, ringing noise in Elder's ear. That's, I would think, would deafen him if it's that loud. But go to chapter 17, and in this chapter, Amy's talking to the doctor and, you know, finding out what's going to happen, and she asks him if she can get refrozen, which is understandable, I would ask myself, and I would ask if I could be refrozen as well. This is not going well. And the doctor tells her she cannot be refrozen because it would be too much for her system. It's a lot to be frozen once, let alone twice. So she's quite unhappy about that. I really enjoy this chapter because, I don't know, Amy's reactions in it are quite believable. She's very obviously upset, so she's just yelling at the doctor, and then Eldest comes in and he's like, we're gonna throw you off the ship, and he's calling her like a freak, and she's freaking out more, and I just think that her reaction is incredibly believable. She's not just taking it in quietly and calmly, and so it's very cool, and yeah. And then in chapter 18 we go back to Elder, of course, and again, Elder's just, I don't know, there's not a lot to say about Elder. He just seems very one-dimensional and very much obsessed with Amy, and just, oh, very much obsessed with Amy. Yeah. It seems like his whole world is just now about Amy and only about Amy, except it's way more sucky than in most kind of romances like these, because her world is not about Elder. She doesn't even really like Elder. And also in this chapter we see Elder go into Eldest's office to find out more about the to find out more about the cryo chambers, and he opens a secret box, and then he sees the inhibitor pills, which are apparently the pills they give to the crazy people, the ones who are creative. And I really, really love that about the people that paint or sing, or, you know, the creative people, the artists of the world. They go into the hospital, the mental institution, basically. I just think it's really, really cool. I think Amanda said that as well. It's just a really kind of cool idea that they would be put into there because they're creative. It's just a very, very interesting idea. Then in chapter 19 we see Amy, who is alone for once in her little hospital room where, you know, it looks like a hospital, but it kind of seems like someone's lived there before because there's clothes and there's just, you know, a bathroom and things like that. So Amy's just kind of adjusting and just doing her thing and exploring the differences and how advanced it is. And that's basically all chapter 19 is, and that's basically a very loose kind of description, it's not very in-depth, I know what I went through, but I go through it enough without recapping it entirely. If you enjoyed this, please leave comments and video responses to both Amanda's and my video, and there will be another up tomorrow. I believe Tori is going tomorrow. I'm not sure. It might be Shanna. I haven't really looked at the schedule. All I know is that I was going today. So look out for another video tomorrow over chapters, I believe, through chapters 10 through 30. Don't take my word for it, but definitely come back tomorrow and check out the next slew of chapters we're going through. And again, comments, video responses, much appreciated, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you're enjoying Across the Universe by Beth Revis.